Hey everyone, so in this video I'm going to be going over how to draw male eyes. Now first what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw the typical male eye on the face first, and then I'm going to go and go into another page, and then I'm going to draw multiple kinds of male eyes. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's zoom in because it's easier to see this way. So when it comes to the male eyes, I tend to draw male eyes as a more of a slanted look. So if I'm going to be drawing on the side here, actually, I'm just going to be drawing one example here. So if I'm going to be drawing eye, I want to make sure that his eyes are more slanted and more mature looking. Because usually when it comes to guys, you want them to look, really handsome and really nice. And generally these kind of eyes are very, very common, very, very sharp eyes. So notice how when I draw the eyes, I make sure to kind of make a basic shape first and then shade it in later. And in fact, I kind of did a little bit quick here, but I will go ahead and slow down once I do it. Here we have the eyelid. And usually the eye ends, or the other side, the bottom side of the eye starts when we go down here. The pupils are generally also a little bit smaller. So they fill about, maybe this is more like a 30%, no, maybe this is more like a 40%. And the rest will be divided into like 30%, or so 60. So outside is like 60 and inside is like 40. And for the pupils, very simply, put a highlight and then just shade that in from the top and leave the bottom part light. And usually the eyebrow lines, because he's a more mature looking guy, it'd probably be a lot closer. So usually, I'll just say this as kind of more of like bluntly, Japanese guys or just kind of Asian guys look more feminine. So typically the beauty standard of a guy in like Asian countries, or especially in Korea, for example, would be very feminine looking, very, very, very like sleek. So if you want to make your guy look a lot more sleek, you can go ahead and just make his face a lot sharper and angular. That's definitely a more popular kind of thing. So I'm gonna draw him more based off of that kind of beauty standard, just because it's more popular among guys in the anime world as well as Asian countries and animation. So let's go ahead and do that. So usually, guys' eyes would fit around the middle here, up at the eye line. You don't want to make them too wide. You want to make sure that they're slanted and give some thickness around the beginning, and then give a nice sharp point at the end. Then we have our eyelid. Asians typically have more monolids, but they usually get it fixed to more of a double lid because it looks prettier. I think. I mean, a lot of women get double eyelid surgery just to make their eyes look a little bit bigger, because sometimes when you have monolids, not always all the time, but I would say like on a general level, when you have monolids, which means no lid at all, it means this is blank, your eyes tend to look a little bit smaller. So that's why a lot of people like to get double eyelid surgery, just because they like that kind of more open feel. And so here we have the eyelid. On top, I want him to look a little bit more up, so rather than straight ahead, I want him to look a little bit up because I want to have some more space to add in the bottom of the eye. Right there. So if I want to mirror this, what I can do is I can take the top and just draw another line on top, take the bottom, and just draw a line across. And this is helpful to understand, like, exactly where is the eye in comparison. So when it comes to the eyes as well, you want to make sure that there's at least one eye length difference. So don't make it too big and don't make it too small either. So I would say just kind of take your fingers here, kind of just, replicate it up here. So I would say the beginning starts about here. And then I can go ahead and draw it with just very, very lightly with the guideline. So just make sure that this is all nice and straight. And I can always adjust later on. Just don't draw too harsh, because then it would become, harder to erase. So notice that I'm gradually thickening these lines here because I want to see if, they look correct. The bottom appears here. It looks like it's going down from here. And the more slanted your eyes go downward, the more adult or the more like seductive the person will look. So I'm making his more angled downward. And once I'm satisfied with the drawing, I can go ahead and add more thickness and darken it. So if you notice that your features look a little bit more like lopsided, go ahead and change that and just make it a little bit more centered. So the nose would typically be here, and the mouth would be more this way. So once again, I'm going to be drawing in the pupil. Make sure it's roughly the same size. Keep looking back and forth to make sure that your symmetry is correct. Usually in the digital world, we would just probably copy and paste really roughly and just kind of redraw some areas that we see fit. But because we're doing this traditionally, we can't really go back. We just have to make sure and kind of do everything manually. So now we can add his eyelids, which is usually thin from the top, or from this side as it ends, and it gets thicker towards the beginning. And if we were to draw eyebrows, the thinner the eyebrows, the more delicate he will look. I'm going to make him a little bit more aggressive looking, so he's probably going to have a bit of a frown, and he's probably going to have thicker eyebrows, so his eyebrows will be around the eyebrow line, thicker on the top, and then thin, almost kind of like a blocky shape, and then thin at the end. And notice how I'm arching this. It's because your brow ridge has a bit of an arch, so usually they have this kind of like hook up here, so it's not completely straight all the time. So just go like, arch, then go down. Make sure they're of equal thickness. Don't make it one side too thick and the other side too thin. So I would say that's a good length here. And usually eyebrows tend to have this kind of hatching feel to it towards the front. And yeah, those are our eyes. And now I'm going to go ahead and draw some other eyes on a separate page. So I will be right back and get to that. Alright, so now let's get started on our eyes. So generally there's multiple types. There is serious types of eyes. There is cheerful, cutesy, I'll just say cute. There is kind of more gloomy or deadpan, more like emotionless, and then there's more of like a sing-song, like kind of flirty type. And I generally do these 4 types because I see these most often. So let's go ahead and let's get started on drawing these. So I'm zooming in because I want to kind of go up. I kind of want to go small here. I don't want to go too big. So when it comes to serious eyes, I think I'll draw like multiple types of serious eyes here. So one type is, as I drew earlier, is more of like the sharp, kind of your average sharp look. In fact, it's very, very sleek and very sharp. So generally they would be very, very narrow as well. So generally they have a very thick top, thin bottom. So this is the very adult kind of eye. So I'm going to also add in the eyebrow as well. So if you look at like stuff like Haikyuu, or maybe even like shonen or shoujo manga, which means just girl or guy mangas, some of the guys would have very, very like angular eyes like this, and sometimes their pupils will be so exaggerated to the point where it just looks like a black dot. And you've seen these kind of eyes before. Sometimes they would even like add some like eyes down here, or not eyes, add some like wrinkles down here to just show like the more like the intimidation of it. Another kind is just more open, just more average kinds. So once again, I'm thickening the top or the front, and then I'm making the end more tapered and slimmer. I'm adding in the eyelid, and I'm making sure that the bottom lid isn't very overpowering. Sometimes if you can also add a little bit of eyelash, but generally guys you don't really add eyelashes because it looks a bit too feminine. So this one, his eyes will probably be a bit more open, but still pretty out there. So I'm adding a highlight, and I'm going to gradually I'm going to darken up at the top and then gradually get lighter. So still serious, more on the serious side, but probably of a more like less intimidating kind of style. Let's see what other cut types are there. I think these two are usually the most common, you know, the very serious, intimidating look, and this is just the more average. So I think those two would work fine. I would love to do a third kind, but I just can't think of one right now. So I think I will go back to it once I think of it. So now let's go for more cutesy type. This one's the more roundish type. This one would have a more rounder, more oval look. So they would have a more higher top and then lower bottom. So compare that to the series where it's kind of like lower on the bottom, lower on the front, and then higher on the back. This is the opposite because it shows a roundness to it, and it's generally a quite cute style of eyes. So I would go ahead and, you know, thicken up the front, then round out the ends here. So don't taper it as much, but still taper it just at the end here. So generally these kinds of cutesy eyes would just be a bit more relaxed. And I like to make sure that the eye has a little bit of room to breathe. So I like to make the eye not all the way up like this, but more downward so it looks more cheerful. And I make the ends kind of end kind of where this starts coming down. And I like to add the highlights pretty big. So if you ever watched Wotakoi, which is otaku, like life is hard for, or romance is hard, love is hard for otaku, the character whose name is I think called Nao, N-A-O, has eyes like this. It's generally very cutesy and very innocent. So you can look at his eyes for reference. Sometimes they would kind of be a little bit more, even more round. Now this is just more of a stylistic choice, but some eyes are just round to be round. Like I don't know exactly what characters there would be, but sometimes I would see eyes that have a very, very strong dip for the eyes. I think let's see. I think Free, that swimming anime for guys, the guy swimming anime, has these kind of eyes, at least for one character. But of course, because it's not a girl, there's not much eyelash to it, but it's still like there. So eyes like this are also pretty popular, and the ends would just be very, very short. So once again, you know, once you draw the pupil, then you can darken from the pupil, from the top of the eye, and then just lighten it down, because that your eye kind of casts a shadow from down below. So that is more of a cutesy eye. Now the gloomy kind of eye is more just like the more emotionless eye. This is sort of like a mix between the serious and the cute. Let's see here. So it's more like slanted. So it's more like just kind of dead. Sometimes the lid would drop at about when it starts getting close to the ends here. So notice how I frame the beginning of my eye. That just gives it more like depth and more kind of interest in more interest in the shape. So as I go lower, I thicken because I want to show that this is a really gloomy looking eye. This is the deadpan eye, sort of. And I want to draw in the ends just very thin. So his eyes are quite droopy. And his eyelids will probably be more like, what, you know. I think a good example of this would be like the same Wotakoi character. I think his name is, darn. what's his name again? It's the blue-haired guy with the glasses. I think it's Naori. I forgot his name. But he has glasses and he has like blue hair and he just looks very, very like very dead inside. So these eyes like this would probably be more like more full, and just kind of look at you like you're kind of like, I don't have time for you, you know, that kind of eye. In fact, I would even go so far as to just darken in the eyes here, just to show that, you know, he's really dead inside. That kind of eye really sets the mood as well. Usually, if you can see here with the highlights, it makes him look really alive. This one looks very, very dead. You can add a highlight, but probably just very, very minuscule, like maybe down here, just to kind of show that, you know, he is alive, he just doesn't care. So, a lot of these eye expressions are very, like, what's it called, story-driven. Then the other kind is more cartoony. It's where you have a very straight-looking eye, and then you curl down. They're called dead fish eyes, I think. And generally they have a very sleepy, like half awake look. So I think one example, even though it's not a guy, but from Kobayashi Dragon Maid, Kobayashi has very deadpan fish eyes and kind of looks like this a little in a way. So the thicker you make the top and the more hazy you make the eye look, the more sleepy the eyes get. Sleepy looking. And now the flirty eyes are kind of like a mix of the cute and the gloomy. So those are the kind of eyes where they're like, hey, you know, they're kind of like the playboy type. They're kind of like, they're just kind of flirty. So let's just go ahead and do that. Let me go ahead and, I think that's good enough. I think it'll fit. So these eyes will be more rounded at the top and then droopier at the bottom. So they'd have a very I think it's the male version of like the sister character. And I'll show you guys in a bit. But generally these eyes would be very, very loose and very laid back. Sometimes you can even add a little bit of eyelash here and there just to add some flair. And his eyebrows, I'm just adding this very, very low just to show you guys what it would look like. Would be more like cutesy, flirty style. And I would actually put his eyes a little bit more like curled up like this because he's kind of almost like kind of happy. Maybe you can even add a little bit of more highlights in this guy's eyes. Some people, when it comes to flirty characters, some people like to draw like little stars in their eyes just to show that they're kind of being like very greasy or very masculine and very flirty. So notice how the difference between the gloomy eye and the flirty eye, they look similar, but because we implemented more of the cute eye into the flirty eye here, this looks more friendly and more approachable. Let me see how the light is. Okay, yeah, it's going good. And finally, we have more of the adult looking eye. So this is more of like a hazy looking eye, like more droopy, more half awake kind of eye. They're like probably like, I think you would see those in like otome games, which are basically like dating simulator games for girls, where where one girl like meets a lot of hot guys and then like they try to get together with the girl. This is probably like a type of eye you would see when you're like, let's say if you're the girl character, and then like you wake up next to like the guy character and in somewhere or another you somehow get into like this guy's room, and then he like starts flirting with you. He's like, hey, you know, he's like, hey, you look beautiful. I can't do this, but you get my point, right? So it's just more very like just very, very flirty. I would say flirty in like a very seductive way, I would say. So I would make his eyes more narrow, but sort of have this kind of like playful round eye look. So I would also make his eyebrows also a little bit more high. And I would make him look a little bit more down as kind of like a condescending look. You can, there's also another variety of eye. There's more variety of eyes. I'm just drawing the more common types that I usually see a lot of the time. So yeah. Anyways, that's pretty much it for this video. Let me know if this helped. Here we have the guy in his average look here, and then we're gonna do the girl next. So anyways, that's it for this video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.